happening, guys? Chris VA Travels out here in Appomattox, going to visit the Appomattox Civil War Museum. Let's check it out. Before I go inside, let me just walk up front and take a look at this display. Down here we've got a big compass. Charleston, Greensboro, Vicksburg, and of course north, Gettysburg. And Richmond is 73 miles away. And here you've got all the flags of the Confederate States. I think this used to be just, it was the Confederate Civil War Museum. And the Bill Cooper Walk. He was a gentleman, historian, and professor. Also an author. The Mississippi flag. Alright, I see Virginia down there. Okay. And yeah, I apologize for any background noise. Obviously the wind's whipping pretty good up on this hill here. And let me take a look at this cannon and caisson. Alright, so we've got Maryland down here. Maryland, Kentucky, and Missouri. Okay, so the three that didn't join. And everything's at half staff, I guess, because that whole New Orleans terrorist attack. Let me just take a look at these. To tell you, the Appomattox battlefield is about 3/4 of a mile down Route 24, down that way. What does this say? 1864? Usually they have a date or something. I guess this is original, I don't know. Steam cannon. Let me walk over and take a look at that plaque. Also tell you there's a hotel on the other side of the museum. Anybody coming from out of town? But yeah, this is a cold January day. Fighting to the end. All right, we gave them a hearty cheer. Well, here's a little map. All right, so Confederate artillery line. Oh yeah, I'm looking forward to seeing Robert E's sword in there. And this is what he wore to the surrender negotiations. Sergeant John Peck of the 8th USCT. Okay, African American soldier. I'll hover over this, let you read. But yeah, April 8th, 1865, hundreds of Confederate vehicles, including wagons, ambulances, artillery pieces, were parked along the column in front of us. To our right at nearby Appomattox Station. There were several trains carrying sorely needed supplies for the Confederate Army. And long story short, the Union Cavalry dashed into the station and captured the trains. Wow, it's whipping good now. All right, let me go in and check out the museum. Walking up to the entrance, they've got a little timeline down on these blocks. Just kind of going through, I guess, the history of the war. And first to tell you that Appomattox County was created May 1st, 1845. And then for anybody who doesn't know, the Civil War started with Fort Sumter. And then a week later, Virginia secedes. And a week before Fort Sumter, they voted not to leave. But after that happened, we jumped in. Yeah, so just kind of going. Lee resigns, joins the Confederacy. April 20th, and this is when he assumes command of the Army of Northern Virginia, June 1st, 1862. And up here, this was the heyday for the Confederacy. This is, I guess, we were kicking butt there for a little while. Yeah, 7 days, Second Manassas, well, maybe not totally Sharpsburg, but Fredericksburg and Chancellorsville. And Chancellorsville, the last hurrah. And then, of course, Turning Point, Gettysburg. And after that, it was just kind of a defensive war. Yeah, Vicksburg, same thing. And then, bam, Grant assumes control. And then, yeah, anyway, fast forward to April 9th, and was the surrender, of course. Cool. All right, so, yeah. Oh, and they've got a big old map over here. Appomattox Courthouse. There's the stage road. So, all right, yeah, go in and check this place out.
Here we go, guys. First thing, Robert E. Lee's sword. According to legend, this is the sword he offered to Grant during the surrender. General Robert E. Lee, CSA, from a Marylander, 1863. After the war, both generals said the story was the purest romance. Pretty good map. You'll see the border states in baby blue that remain neutral. The upper South seceded after Fort Sumter, and the deeper South seceded after Abraham Lincoln's election. A lot of people think Lincoln won because the Democrats had split the ticket, but if you add up all the other candidates' electoral votes, they still don't equal what Lincoln had gotten. But then again, it's hard to say what would have happened if it was just a two-man race. Young Robert E. Lee, Colonel of the U.S. Army. Below is a letter he had written to General Winfield Scott explaining why he declined his offer to command the U.S. Army. After Virginia seceded, he famously left as well, saying he could never draw a sword against his home state. This one's kind of a famous picture. Again, the sword he supposedly offered to Grant, and big old sash, and wearing some oversized pants. Ambrotype of Alice, Walter, and Susan Bryant. This is right before his departure from Halifax, North Carolina. He ended up getting killed at Fort Fisher. Reverend Patrick Warren, with his two sons 11 and Luther, aged 15 and 17. After Union forces occupied their home county, they hopped into a canoe, crossed the Chesapeake, and headed to Richmond, where they enlisted. Portrait of Julia Logan. She was a clerk in the Confederate Treasury Note Bureau, May 9th, 1864. May 23rd, 1861, three Hampton slaves, Frank Baker, Shepard Mallory, and James Townsend, escaped from their owner and sought refuge with the nearby U.S. Army garrison at Fort Monroe. General Benjamin Butler refused to return the slaves, instead declaring them contraband, with which the U.S. Army could seize and hold. Marlboro Jones, was he a black Confederate? Jones was a Liberty County, Georgia slave who accompanied his young master off to war. After his master was shot and killed, he brought his body back home. It says although Jones posed in a Confederate uniform, he was a camp servant, not a soldier. Hundreds of African Americans enlisted formerly in the Confederate services as cooks and musicians. Over here, a slave stampede over at Fort Monroe underneath a full moon. Ben Harris with Surgeons Wilson Randolph, Kidder Taylor, and John Randolph Page. This is over at the Lynchburg Hospital. Fourth Virginia Cavalry, Company H, known as the Black Horse Troop. They came to national attention in 1859 when they escorted abolitionist John Brown to his execution. After the war, they draped the caskets of fallen comrades with this flag. Miniature stars and bars, and this was the second national Confederate flag. Cross down here is made of braided palmetto fronds, and then there's a small pink keep above. flag of the Columbia Rifles, 2nd Florida Infantry Company C. See the 8 stars. Victory or death out of Florida. Lake City, Florida is where they mustered. Before and after of Hubbard Pryor, an escaped slave out of Georgia, fled and then joined the 44th U.S. Colored Troops. It said that he had left the South as a slave and returned as a soldier and a free man. A photo of Molly Wilson, circa 1880. And there's a really good book on letters that she had written to her husband throughout the war. It goes in detail about his time in a Confederate prison. Soldiers celebrating, leaving via train, headed off to war. And then a pretty good display in contrast. Statues here of a family grieving. Looks like mother's slipping him a Bible. And yeah, it looks like just a teenage boy. Big battle flag over here of, they think, the 28th North Carolina Infantry. This thing was captured at Gettysburg and later marked with battle honors. You'll see Manassas, Cold Harbor. This thing is 4 feet by 4 feet. A traditional battle flag made of silk. This was given to the 18th Virginia Infantry back on December 1st, 1861. Photo of Miss Howells in deep mourning, circa 1860s. And this is the mourning veil of Lizzie Smith out of Matthews County. Coat of Irish-born General Patrick Claiborne, known as the Stonewall Jackson of the West. And he's the one that first proposed recruiting slaves to be Confederate soldiers in exchange for their freedom. He ended up dying in battle in Franklin, Tennessee. Frock coat of Colonel Ellis Capers out of the 24th South Carolina Infantry. Here he is. You'll see the star and leaf insignia on his collar. That was added by the photographer. Pretty good one. Coat of General John Bell Hood. And this sash is of Major General William Loring. Pretty nice looking jacket, worn by Colonel Lawrence Keitt, a politician that had left to join the Confederacy in 1861. He raised and commanded the 20th South Carolina Infantry. Watch of Brigadier General John Adams. He was carrying this watch when he was killed charging a Federal artillery battery at the Battle of Franklin. This is a silk ribbon badge. It says in memory of General Stonewall Jackson. And over here a half mourning bead necklace. It was presented by Mary Agnes Grant. A candle made of wax-coated string wrapped around a corn cob. This is a drawing over here of guerrilla fighting. It says a widespread and destructive guerrilla war began in 1861. Before long, pro-Confederate and pro-Union guerrillas throughout the South were engaged in a war of political and economic control over their neighborhoods. Amendment to the Negro Soldier Bill, February 14, 1865. And Private Asa Witt of the 10th Virginia Cavalry, 30-year-old farmer from Nelson County, Virginia. He was captured at the Battle of Five Forks and taken to Point Lookout Prison up in Maryland. Lieutenant General A.P. Hill, commander of the Army of Northern Virginia's 3rd Corps. Hill was carrying his sword when he was killed on April 2, 1865. According to Lee's oldest son, Major General George Washington Custis Lee, this is the coat Lee wore during his meeting with Grant at Appomattox. Photos taken just days after their surrender show Lee wearing his Confederate colonel's coat, the 3 stars without the wreath, but staff officers had described Lee as dressing with more than usual care during the surrender, so this may be the coat. Lee with his right-hand man, Colonel Charles Marshall. He wrote all of Lee's after-action reports, and as the surrender loomed large, he stayed busy. He's the one that located the McLean House for the surrender, and he also wrote the draft of Lee's farewell, General Order Number 9. Frock coat of 26-year-old Colonel Walter H. Taylor. He was conspicuously absent at the McLean House meeting. On the night of the evacuation of Richmond, Lee gave Taylor permission to remain behind and marry his sweetheart, Betty Saunders. Coat of Major General Henry Wise, Virginia's 33rd governor, and promoted to the rank of Major General after Sailor's Creek, and he was one of the generals that counseled Lee against the further sacrifice of life. The shell jacket of Captain John Donald Smith with the Bedford Artillery. He was a highly educated Marylander, began the war as an aide to General John Magruder. He injured at Chancellorsville, but recovered to regain command of his unit for Appomattox. Revolver of Colonel John W. Lee with the 5th North Carolina Infantry. Also wounded at Chancellorsville, again recovered to regain command of his regiment at Appomattox. Again, the Lieutenant Colonel W.H. Taylor. I guess he made it to Appomattox after his wedding. Here's his parole pass, April 10th, 1865. Some flagstaffs surrendered at the Appomattox campaign. Uniform shell jacket of Major Robert Stiles. He was a Richmond resident, served in several regiments, including the 1st Company Richmond Howitzers, Cabell's Battalion, 1st Artillery, and the 1st Confederate Engineers. Captured at Sailor's Creek, taken to Johnston's Island at Fort Lafayette, and he had refused to take the oath and was held a prisoner of war until October 21st, 1865. When he ended up signing the oath, they say he had crossed his fingers behind his back. Here he is, Major General Fitzhugh Lee, with his wicked goatee, nephew of Robert E. Lee. And he had proposed that he extricate his army's cavalry to avoid having to surrender. He wanted to keep alive the hope of future operations. This is a pretty good painting. This would be on April 12th, 1865. And this is the Army of Northern Virginia furling its flag for the final time. At 4:30 p.m., shortly after the surrender, General Grant sent a telegraph to Secretary of War Edwin Stanton with news of the surrender. This drawing is called Palm Sunday. It's by Thomas Nast, and it's out of Harper's Weekly, May 20th, 1865. We hold out the olive branch to our erring and misguided brethren of the southern states, a pledge to all of them who are loyal, a hearty welcome to all of the benefits of our free republic. And over here it says, honor the illustrious dead and heartily sympathize with the sufferings of our gallant heroes and their families. These child's shoes were made from a piece of Brigadier General William Terry's Confederate uniform out of Whitfield, Virginia. Bullseye Canteen in the haversack back there were Corporal Thomas V. Brooks. He was with the Richmond Howitzers Artillery. Local organizations in 1890 created the United Confederate Veterans, which reached a peak of 80,000 members in 1903. frock coat to the right here was worn by Brigadier General Thomas M. Logan. He acquired the coat early 1865. It wore it at the surrender of Johnston's army to Sherman, April 26, 1865. Wore it a month later to his wedding, May 25, 1865. Coat here with 4 stars on the collar was worn by Governor John Milton. He had no formal military rank during the Civil War, but wore the coat. He was a captain of a volunteer company during the Seminole Wars. Towards the end of the war, he declared, so audacious that death would be preferable to reunion with them. He acted on his principles by committing suicide April 1st, 1865. Mexican silver dollar. A lot of coats in here, guys. This is the frock coat of Lieutenant Colonel Archer Anderson over at Tredegar Iron Works. Oh, pretty neat. The sword in the gauntlets back there of General Joseph E. Johnston. And here are his spurs. Here's a draft of General Johnston's farewell message, General Order Number 22, May 2nd, 1865. And he's got pretty good penmanship. Confederates on the move. Egypt, not familiar with that. Former slaves, about 4,000, moved to Liberia, Monrovia. Yeah, some Confederates moved down to Brazil after the war. Descendants are known as Confederados. The freed woman Mary Armstrong. And you can find some of these WPA interviews on YouTube. They're very interesting. She tells the story of receiving her free papers in 1863, moving to Texas where she reunited with her mother. Don't see a write-up on this sculpture, but I saw it when I was down in Columbia, South Carolina. I don't remember the story. But is that a Union soldier? I see a clover on his chest. Private Charles Broadway Rouse of the 12th Virginia Cavalry. Born in Maryland and raised in Winchester, Virginia. After the war, he moved to New York City, became a successful merchant, building a 10-story building on Broadway, where then he changed his middle name to Broadway. He used his wealth for philanthropic causes, creating the Confederate Memorial Institute, also known as Battle Abbey, in Richmond. Brigadier General Stan Waddy, the only fully commissioned Native American general during the war. He commanded federal troops during the last land surrender. That's at Dokesville Indian Territory in Oklahoma. Surrender negotiations going on back here. And frock coat of Major General Dabney Maury, Fredericksburg native, raised by his uncle Matthew Fontaine Maury, famous naval officer. Last few battles of the war. Of course, you've got Sailor's Creek and Five Forks up there in Virginia. Oh yeah, and the Brigadier General Stan Waddy out there in Dokesville. June 23rd, he surrendered. Yeah, Palmetto Ranch, Mobile, Alabama. Great photo of some rebel works in Atlanta. The photos by George N. Barnard. Looks like a reunion here at the courthouse, or possibly a political rally. And I believe this is 1963. Some veterans over here, and interesting, they're all holding American flags. Little creepy, but here's the death mask of Robert E. Lee. Looks like flyers for regular meetings at NB Forest Camp, United Confederate Veterans in Chattanooga, Tennessee, and held by L.T. Dickinson. August 23rd, 1862. This is a Punch cartoon depicting President Lincoln facing the demands of needing to pay for the army without a good revenue stream. Wow, $1,000 in today's money to fully outfit a soldier. A wildcat banker locked up in some stocks. And wildcat bankers, they frequently defrauded the public by issuing notes they couldn't redeem in gold or silver. Freed people link greenbacks as a break from the past and the opportunity of a future without slavery. In 1862, Congress introduced the greenback as legal tender, getting its name, of course, because of the intricate green design on the back of the bills. And they were only backed by the government's word. Confederate bonds used to raise money for the war effort, and after the Confederacy dissolved, the bonds were worthless. They could be used as nothing more than collectibles. This is entitled In Battle Array, and it lampoons populists as cranks and radicals. Led by William Jennings Bryan, they advocated for the most radical plan of economic democracy in the 19th century. It returned to chaos. The U.S. attempted to phase out the use of greenbacks after the war. The Gilded Age economy relied on national banknotes and silver and gold certificates. 1914, the U.S. turned control of the national money supply over to the Fed, which issued the Federal Reserve Note, the cash we use today. This pulley is out of Tredegar Iron Works in Richmond, circa 1900. Good picture of the famous High Bridge, an engineering marvel at the time. This guy taking a load off. And yeah, the Confederate Army forgot to burn the little bridge down below, and that's where the Union Army crossed. And this is where Jeff Davis stayed during the war, the Confederate White House. It's a site you can still visit. I've got a video on it if you want to check it out. This is the Confederate Museum that opened in 1896. In 2006, it moved over to Tredegar and was renamed the American Civil War Museum.
All right, that's it for the museum, and I stopped in the gift shop on the way out. Got this cool Virginia mug. And I got this book on the Bermuda 100 campaign, so yeah, check that out sometime. All right, so I'm gonna walk over, take a look at that cabinet, and get out of here. All right, behind the museum, like I said, we've got this cabin. I'm gonna walk up, just kind of a little homestead they've got set up. Check this out. And yeah, they got some vegetables growing, some cotton over there, it looks like. Okay, so this thing was built in 1840, and it was moved here. It was originally about 9 miles away. Yeah, and just to let you know, this thing's made of chestnut timbers. And these posts right here are cedar, the porch posts. And this porch wasn't original. It wasn't on the original house. So it was donated by the Carnifex family. So that's cool. And there were 11 family members. A little good luck horseshoe right here, it looks like. And you can see beams going across right there. So, been kind of like a little loft or attic up top. And let me stick the camera in here. I don't know how well you can see, but I just see some chairs. To the right, a fireplace. And just kind of wicker chair back there. Pretty standard for out in this area. What is this thing right here? I'd say it's a bell, but it's kind of wooden. Oh, stone chimney over here. They did a good job putting the chimney back together. Oh, you see the little window right there. Pretty cool. Oh yeah, and check out the panels going across. Yeah, you can tell those were done by hand. Okay, so just got some wood chopped up for the winter time. Another porch back here, and this is cedar shingles as always. And this would be a good representation of just a common man's home. So I used to go into these giant plantations. You forget, yeah, this is how the average citizen lived, at least in this area. Yeah, it's pretty neat. Like I say, those boards going across up there. So, okay, yeah, pretty cool little cabin. It's neat to have that set up. It's probably open in the, let me stick the camera actually through this window. I don't know what you can, I don't know if you can see anything, but is that made of wax? Or, I don't know, but, alright, so let me check out this garden. And, yeah, this is the beginning of January, so obviously not too much is going to be happening in here. So, vegetable garden, a heritage garden, domestic crops from South Central North America. African crops derived during the Atlantic slave trade. Alright, I guess I can go in here. I mean, I guess there's not much to, well, I'm not gonna, no need to go in here. Watermelon, cantaloupe, sesame seeds, peanut. And, yeah, so, alright, yeah, just a little garden. And let me walk over and see they got cotton growing. Oh, and if I didn't mention, this is the Jones Family Homestead in memory of Buddy and Elizabeth J. Jones. Pretty cool. Kind of a shaving horse over here. Let's look at these dead cotton plants. Orinoco tobacco. And that's Virginia's cash crop. I think we're going back to the John Rolfe strains. Tobacco is a culture productive of infinite wretchedness. Thomas Jefferson. I know King James didn't like tobacco either. Flowering buckwheat. King cotton over here. Pretty much that's what caused the Civil War right there. Deep South cash crop, brown and white varieties. So obviously you can see the difference between the brown and white. Alright, so yeah, just some cotton plants. Yeah, like I say, it'd be great seeing this in the spring or the summer. Actually, I see some kind of more in bloom, I guess, back here. Actually, I see a couple signs over there. Let me just walk over, read those, see what they are, and then, yeah, I'm getting out of here. Is it just saying what this tree is? Okay, a black walnut. And you'll see it's kind of native to the mid-Atlantic region, it looks like, from what I can tell. Yeah, it's got some water damage. Oh, and during the Civil War, its pulverized bark could be used as a natural remedy in the form of tea to treat dysentery and to be used as a laxative. Okay, alright, so learned something about black walnut, and this is just, my eyes are kind of blinded from the sun natural area. Alright, so yeah, cool. Alright, yeah, that's it for the Appomattox Civil War Museum. Great place to check out. Ticket's only $15, and if you come, of course, the battlefield is right up the road. So yeah, guys, I'm gonna get out of here. As always, like and subscribe. See you on the next one.